Hi Internet, welcome to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel, and welcome to Greg's 14 Adventures, a weekly vlog where I discuss my journey through Final Fantasy XIV as a first-time player. I beat A Realm Reborn back in 2022, and I'm finally finishing up the rest of the game. These vlogs are documenting my journey. If you like these videos and want to support their continued production, the best way to do that is to like the video, share it on a relevant social media site like Reddit, and leave a comment. Thanks, pal. So this week I got in a lot less 14 playing than I normally do. Final Fantasy XIV is my main game, and I tend to focus on one game at a time. That's just the way I like to do things, because I feel if I play multiple games, I don't make much progress and I fall behind, so that's why I really like to focus on one RPG at a time. So I know some people will play like, oh, I'll play my MMO, and then I'll play like an offline game on the side. But me, because 14 is my focus, I want to get through the story, I try not to play anything else except for really one major exception, which is Another Eden, the live service game that I played before 14. Because I'm caught up on Another Eden, if there is a new story patch, story update, I will play through that when that comes out, since I'm caught up on it so I don't fall behind. And so that's sort of the one exception to the rule of 14 being my main game and not really playing anything else substantial outside of 14. Maybe I'll play like some King of Fighters or Tekken or something just to like de-stress. But overall, 14 is, my focus game, and I'm not really playing anything else with the exception of Another Eden. And so there was Another Eden story update that came out last week, which I just refer to them as expansions. And most of the expansion updates are maybe a couple hours long, but this one was really, really massive. This one, I think, I didn't keep necessarily count of how long it was, but this could have easily been like, when you factor in the grind factor of this expansion, this could easily be like a 10 to 20 hour update. Like, it was a pretty massive update. And so in addition to that massive Another Eden update, I've also been working on a new video essay for the channel, and I've been trying to sort of balance my time between playing 14, working on the vlogs, and also working on the video essay, so progress is being made on that. And I also schedule monthly phone calls with my closest friends to just make sure I keep in touch with them and not do the thing where, oh, I'm in my 30s and I never talk to my friends anymore. And I have friends who live all over the country. Like, we all sort of moved, we scattered all across the country. And so I made sure, I made sure to call them once a month to check in, see how everybody's doing, keep the friendship alive. And so last week was also one of the weeks where I had multiples of those phone calls scheduled. And in addition to that, work kept me really, really busy this week, where I had less time to play because of work stuff than I normally do. So I had the phone calls with the friends, the craziness with work, and the giant Another Eden patch update. So all those things really cut down on my 14 playing. And yes, part of it was playing a different game, but part of it was all those other things, the video essay, work, the phone calls with the friends. So I still actually did play 14 for a few hours this week, and I do have some stuff to discuss, which I'm glad I do, because I'm glad this isn't going to be a vlog that says, hey, I didn't play any 14 this week, sorry. So I am going to be talking about 14 a little bit later in the video. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into my Another Eden playing, and then for those of you who just do not care and are only here for 14, there'll be a time code in the description if you want to skip this section. But basically everyone in the comments has expressed interest in Another Eden based upon my description of it. And so there seems to be some crossover appeal between 14 and Another Eden based upon the development staff and the general approach to the game and storytelling. So I'll continue to have Another Eden updates in these vlogs as I'm playing through a new Another Eden content. But like I said, 14 is still my main game. Another Eden is my side game when new story stuff comes out, so it'll temporarily be pushed to the top of the list when a new update comes out. Otherwise, 14 is still my main game. Okay, so I'm going to get into a little bit of context of what Another Eden is so that you can understand the story update. Just give you like the bare bones minimum you need to appreciate this next section. So brief Another Eden lore for you. So Another Eden is a time travel game by Masato Kato. It is a turn-based RPG, and it is free to play on mobile and Steam, and is mainly a spiritual successor to the Chrono games, but also pays homage to every Square game that Kato has ever worked on. So there's references to Xenogears, Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy XI, which is the most important one in terms of what we're about to talk about here. So the main character in Another Eden is named Aldo, and he's named after Aldo from Final Fantasy XI. In the intro movie of Final Fantasy XI, Aldo's sister is attacked by beastmen, and it serves as the inciting incident for his journey. In Another Eden, Aldo's sister is kidnapped by beastmen, and it serves as the inciting incident for the story. In Another Eden, humans and beastmen are at war in Aldo's time. Remember, it's a time travel game. And Aldo eventually goes to fight the Beast King, who has a lot of similarities in terms of design to the Shadow Lord. There's some equivalence in terms of like the role they fill in the story, but I would say there's a lot of differences in their backstories and personalities, but a lot of similarities between the Beast King in Another Eden and the Shadow Lord in Final Fantasy XI. But anyway, in Another Eden, and spoilers for Another Eden, Aldo eventually kills the Beast King, but later on in one of the expansions, through complicated plot shenanigans, the Beast King gets revived, but he gets revived as a version of himself that is 16 years younger without memories of the previous 16 years and joins your party. And from that point onward, he's no longer referred to as the Beast King by your party, but he's referred to by his first name, Gildna. So another way to think of it is because the game is inspired by Chrono Trigger, which is a property that Akira Toriyama was involved with, it's also inspired by Dragon Ball in a way, and he is sort of like the Piccolo character. Starts off as a bad guy, king of the demons, king of the beastmen, gets killed, gets revived in a, younger form, but then like becomes like your allies, like, ooh, I'm like tough and cool and I like to fight. So he's essentially Piccolo. He is Piccolo and the Shadow Lord from Final Fantasy XI combined into a single character, and that's basically Gildna. And he is sort of the central character of this expansion. So the plot of Another Eden is a lot more complex than that, but this gives you the context for this expansion, what you need to know. And the giant update that just launched last week was the first fourth of this expansion. So it's going to be a lengthy one. Another Eden expansions are just, they're no joke. They are huge, and there are a ton of them. Another Eden is like 40 RPGs combined into one. Like, it is just massive. Like, when I say I have over 1,000 hours in Another Eden, it's not just because like I'm doing like grinding for super boss and stuff. That's mostly like just the main stories of the expansions. It is nuts how much story content is in this game. Like, ridiculous. But ridiculous in a good way. Like, it's quality content for the most part, although I do have some critiques of this new expansion. So this expansion is called An Ode to Origin, and the part that got released is called Act 1, The Beastfolk, Antimony. In this entire expansion, at least part 1, takes place in the present time of Another Eden. There's multiple eras you can travel to, and multiple timelines you can travel to, but this is present of the main timeline. So Aldo is approached by an antiquities expert named Massimo, who states that an employee of his named Chalika has gone missing during a treasure hunting expedition. And we suspect that Chalika was on an island full of beasts when she was searching for the treasure, and so we go to Conium, which is a village of beastmen, to see if we can find more information. But before we do that, I did a character quest for a character named Hazuki, who I didn't realize that I had upgraded. So basically, Another Eden is a gacha game, and you draw gacha characters from gacha pools. They give you tons of free currency, so I have over 180 characters, and I've never needed to pay for a character and have no problem clearing content. But basically, each character that you draw has like between 2 and 4 character quests that you can play through, and you can get more character quests as you upgrade the character. And I guess I hadn't realized I had upgraded Hazuki to unlock her 3rd character quest. And so somehow I realized that. I'm like, oh shoot, I should do this character quest quick. And so basically the character quest was Hazuki purging the demon fox spirit within her and going through a bunch of shenanigans to purge that fox spirit within her. But then it's revealed that there's over 100 fox spirits within her and we need to purge all of them. And so it like ends with like sort of like a comic relief joke ending to the quest where it's like, oh, purging this, fox spirit, what might kill me, but it's what I gotta do. But she won't die until like she purges all 100 of them. So, it's a nice bait and switch, kind of funny little quest. This was a quest I'd actually seen before because what I do is if I unlock a character, I will play through the quest that I just unlock by naturally getting the character. But because some of the upgrade processes are long and complicated, I'll just watch like the extra character quests on YouTube. And I'd forgotten that I had watched this quest already, but it had been so long that it felt kind of fresh doing it. It's just like, oh, okay, I kind of remember this. So nice to see that quest line again. But yeah, then I also did a quick adjustment of my party and added Ryza from the Atelier series into my party because based on your party composition in this expansion, you get boosts for crafting because this is very much a craft-heavy expansion. So for any Atelier fans out there, there's an entire Atelier crossover expansion that was pretty fun. And so Ryza got to rejoin my party for assisting in crafting in this expansion. But anyway, so we go to Conium, the village of the Beastmen, and find out that feral beasts, not to be confused with Beastmen, are attacking Astra Island after a meteor landed there. Astra Island being a new location we haven't visited before. And Astra Island is apparently the home of another tribe of Beastmen, and is considered the origin point where Beastmen came from. We decide to go to the island to check it out because we think that Chalika might be there, and because Gildna, being the king of the Beastmen, wants to protect his people, and so when he hears his people are struggling, he wants to go help them. So Aldo, Gildna, and 2 other Beastmen characters, Varys and Myrus, go to the island. When we first get to Astra Island, the islanders don't accept Gildna because after being reborn, he allied with the humans after their big, decades-long war with humans. And Gildna also lost his ability to transform, which is a really big deal with the Beastmen. And so they basically think that Gildna has gone soft with his being friends with humans and no longer being able to turn into a sick monster. But anyway, so one of the villagers in Astra Island is gathering herbs for a ceremony of strength for a newborn. And so the party ends up helping them out, and we end up meeting Chalika, who I guess unfortunately met with a really bad accident when she landed on shore of the island and was near death, and then became possessed by a spirit who calls herself Spiri. And basically that ghost spirit is the only thing keeping her alive. And so if Spiri was to leave Chalika's body, then Chalika would die. And so the 2 of them are just sort of cohabitating the same body, but they have vastly different personalities, and they will often switch who is talking mid-conversation. So we decide we want to help find a way to heal Chalika so that Spiri can leave her body and they can go about living their lives or afterlives as they were previously. But we don't know how to do that yet, so we're going to look for clues on how to help Chalika, while also looking for clues as to what's up with this meteor and why it's causing the monsters on the island to go berserk. So we go to the ceremony for the newborn, which we are accepted into because of helping get the herbs. And we meet 2 characters, Zesta and Brasa, a pair of twins who will be important characters in this expansion. And then we do a whole bunch of crafting to just unlock new locations, because this is a expansion that focuses on crafting, and it's probably my least favorite crafting expansion in Another Eden. There are a few different crafting expansions, and this one is a crafting town building sim. So you get materials to build up different buildings in the town and help you restore the town to its former glory, because the town has been attacked by beasts. And the biggest annoyance with this crafting expansion is that it's the grindiest out of all the crafting expansions. The other town building sim, I think, had a much more interesting story with the town itself, where basically that expansion really played with the concept of time in a video game, where you would go to the town and gather materials and build up the town, and then you would go back to the town later, and time will pass. Like, okay, well, whatever, time passes, it's a video game, that's normal. But time would pass at a much faster rate, and you realize that the town was in like this weird time vortex where they were like having kids and stuff, and you were only gone for like a couple hours. And it was a really clever twist with like the whole time travel thing and the town building thing. And so there was a lot more incentive to like see where the plot was going with the town building sim, versus this one, it's just a really big grind and like, oh, you built this building, thanks. And so it takes a lot longer for a lot less payoff. In addition to that, this town building sim has a really annoying mechanic where the tools that you use for gathering items, your like logging axe, your pickaxe, and your scythe, they wear down and break over time, and then you need to spend currency to repair them, which you get from doing random battles. But oftentimes when you need to repair your gear, you'll find that you don't have enough of the currency, so then you have to go out and grind some battles. And so it leads to a more frustrating gameplay loop of crafting than most Another Eden expansions. Most of the expansions, they'll introduce a new mechanic, and it's typically pretty fun. It keeps the gameplay interesting, and so you're not doing the same thing over and over again. And so even though there have been other expansions with a crafting emphasis, and there was a grind, they weren't as grindy, and I think the gear repairing system is just annoying. And I don't know why it's a mechanic that developers include, because, like, does anybody find it fun? Like in 14, when you have to repair your gear, does anybody enjoy that? I just get annoyed that periodically I have to go to the merchant and mender and repair my gear. I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this? So if anyone can give me a good justification in the comments why 14's gear repairing system is good, let me know, because I don't think it's fun. And I'm just like, why is this even in the game? This is just a waste of time, and I'm just going to do the repair all option, so why even bother with this mechanic? But anyway, after doing some crafting, we go to a hill overlooking the temple ruins on Astra Island and see bubbles coming up from the temple and transform monsters into crazier monsters. And so after observing that, we go back to the village, and the baby from the ceremony is kidnapped by Brasha. And that ends Chapter 1 of Part 1, because this story update was 3 chapters long, and I thought that that was going to be the entire update, but that was just Chapter 1 of 3, and Chapter 1 of 3 of Part 1 of 4. So like I said, this is a pretty huge expansion, because Chapter 1 was easily 2 to 4 hours, so that just gives you a brief glimpse into the massiveness of this update. So Chapter 2 was basically us going to the ruins to look for the kidnapped baby. And we get a reveal from Spiri that if Spirit or Chalika becomes unconscious, the other one can still be awake and do stuff, because there was a giant drop into the ruins. And during the fall, Chalika ended up falling unconscious. But Spiri, who likes adventure, was like, nope, I'm still awake. And so that is a mechanic that will probably be important at some point later on in this massive expansion. But anyway, our progress has stopped exploring the ruins because we need to craft some orbs in order to open up doors to unlock more rooms in the ruins. And we get a cutscene about Brasha talking about evolution, which seems to be a theme of the expansion, just beastmen evolving into a higher form. And it's a pretty solid storytelling center for this expansion. But then it is back to crafting, which conveniently with my Joy to Key setup, I found a way to make the crafting easier. Instead of having to frantically tap a button to chop down a tree or to mine coal, I have it set where I can just tap one button and then it'll rapid fire click it for me with me just having to hold down on the button, which is nice. So the crafting was easier for me because I'm playing with a controller and have a specific setup. So that did make things slightly more convenient, but this was still the grindiest and worst of the crafting expansions in Another Eden. At least in terms of the crafting itself, the story itself is actually pretty decent, but the crafting is definitely the worst in the game. Which is probably not a good selling point for people who haven't played Another Eden, oh, this doesn't sound that great. It's just this is honestly, mechanically, that feature is one of the weakest mechanics in the entire game. But you get the honesty on this channel. But anyway, while getting orb materials, we get a cutscene where Zesta, in her monologues about wishing that Gildna could still transform, which makes you suspicious of her, okay, so she is acting like she's fine with his inability to transform, and that she accepts him the way he is now, but maybe she doesn't. And then we do some more crafting, and go to confront the kidnappers, and we get a warning that Gildna is doing a solo fight, and will be the only member of your party. And because he's a little bit underleveled, I never use him because there's just so many characters. I put on Reputation by Taylor Swift and did some grinding to make him stronger. So after listening to that album and grind him out to max level quick, I go and initiate the fight. And we get some lore before the fight about how the ruins where Beastfolk were born, and that they think that the meteor and the bubbles coming from the meteor are a miracle destined to allow them to have a rebirth and evolution. And so they want to trade the baby for Gildna willingly touching the bubbles and evolving into his higher form. And so the baby is given to Zesta and Spiri, and Gildna touches the bubbles, but it does nothing, and he ends up fighting the kidnapper beastmen all by himself just to prove how cool he is. And after Brasha and the other kidnappers are defeated, he reveals that Zesta was their leader the whole time. And so we go back to find that Spiri is knocked out, but Chalika is doing her best to fight off Zesta and trying to save the baby. Zesta transforms into a crazy new form and kidnaps Gildna, and goes deeper into the ruins, which is only able to be accessed by even more crafting. So we return to the village with the baby to regroup and think of a plan, and in order to progress to the dungeon and open up the room where Gildna is, we need to repair some stuff, which really slows down the momentum of the story, and I don't think the crafting element was integrated into the story very well here. The other expansions with crafting, it felt like a natural part of the story's core themes, we are rebuilding this town, therefore, and the entire thing was around town building, so crafting made sense. And there was a storylines about alchemy, okay, well, you're at an alchemist guild, obviously crafting makes sense here. But hey, there's a kidnapping plot, so we need to craft. It doesn't connect narratively the way those other ones do, which is really unfortunate. But I didn't really care. I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to do the bare minimum amount of crafting to just get through the story. I don't need to fully revive the village. I don't care. I'm just here for the story. Maybe if I wasn't playing 14, I would revive the whole village, but I'm fine just to do whatever I need to do to get through the story. But then I was checking the cat catalog, where basically Another Eden, one of the collectibles in the game is just different cats. Like, you have a catalog of all the different cats you can find out in the wild, and then they can be your friends if you find them. And I saw that there was one in the village, but there was no icon for it on the minimap, which means, oh shoot, this cat is hidden behind the crafting system. In order to see this cat in the village, I have to do a whole bunch of crafting to unlock the cat's location. And for anybody who knows me, they know that I am a sucker for cats, and I'm a sucker for the cat collecting system in Another Eden. And so I said to myself, oh shoot, I really want to get that cat added to my catalog. So I ended up pausing the story to grind out some crafting and listen to Lover by Taylor Swift. And then I found that one item I needed for the crafting for one of the places in the village could not be obtained until I completed part 1 of this expansion, so this entire update. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to have to pause my crafting to go back to the story in order to get this cat. So I went back to the plot of crafting orbs for a location called the Observatorium. And it was actually really cool. There was a fun mechanic where you have to read these poems and figure out where the orbs align in the star chart to open up new doors in this location. It was actually pretty cool. I like that. There was a brief boss battle with Varys, who got hit by bubbles and then ended up going feral. And then we finally catch up to Gilda and fight him because he got his beast mode back and went berserk. But after fighting him and calming him down, we fight Zesta and then return her to her senses as well, because she had also been hit by the bubbles earlier, and that's sort of what caused her to go crazy and hatch her plot of kidnapping and evolution. And so after everyone is finally free from the influence of the bubbles, Zesta and Brasha decide they want to help Spiri and Shalika return to their original forms. And so we go back to the ruins and find a capsule with someone who looks like Spiri inside of it in suspended animation. And the capsule looks like some kind of futuristic test tube, which makes me think there was going to be some time travel shenanigans, because Another Eden is a time travel game, and time travel has not been incorporated into this expansion plotline yet. And so based on the fact that it is 4 parts, means that we're probably going to have one part that focuses on the past era, one part that focuses on the future era, and then a big grand finale is what I'm guessing where this expansion is going to go. So after beating Chapter 3 of the expansion, I finished grinding for the buildings, and the cat finally appeared. Got the cat, felt good about it. And then 2 other side quests opened up. I was like, man, I just want to play 14. I'm done with this expansion. That was a lot of grinding. And so I was ready to play 14, but then work was like, hey, great news. We need you to do some extra hours for us, and you're going to be on these really long telecalls where you're just stuck, unable to do anything but listening to people telling you how to do your job, even though you already know how to do your job. And so that left me unable to do MSQ in 14 because I would need to pay attention to the story and reading and listening to the music, and I can't do that while on a telecall. But you know what I could do on a telecall is grind out for materials. So I ended up doing those last 2 side quests because I was stuck with this time where I was sitting and doing nothing other than listening to lectures from corporate. But that was also a time where I could just mindlessly grind and finish out those quests. One of the quests was helping put on a festival, and it changed the town music, which was nice. It was very Chrono Trigger-esque. That was pretty cool. And the other was researching an ancient scroll that says, hey, here lies a super boss. And I tried getting to the super boss, but the door was locked. And the wiki, because the expansion is so new, the wiki didn't say how to open the door. And then on Reddit, I did find out how to open the door, but it was grinding against another boss who had elemental strength against my current party. And I just didn't feel like dealing with that. I'm like, you know what? I don't really care about the super boss. I'm good. But, getting the new town music, that was nice. And so that was my big Another Eden update this week, which the reason I played so much of it was just because of these circumstances of my week. And I think also the fact that I wouldn't have done as much grinding with the quest and wouldn't have played it as much if there wasn't that cat to unlock, and if I wasn't stuck on those corporate meetings where I just had to just sit there for hours. And that gave the incentive of just okay, grinding this out more than I would have otherwise. But anyway, come Wednesday, I finally got to play some 14 this week. I started off by playing the Rising seasonal event, which ordinarily I wait to play those with Summoner Jobin, but I didn't know if I would have time to play it and get out a video of a playthrough this week with Lito because of the time to record the vlogs and stuff. So I ended up playing it early Wednesday morning. And, the Rising is an event I look forward to every year in 14. I always get reminded of the Bruce Springsteen song and album, The Rising, which is one of the boss's best. But anyway, yeah, I've done a few of these Rising events over the years, and I think they're just a really great part of 14. I really like that one of the NPCs for the event looks like Minfilia from 1.0. I thought that's a great little Easter egg. But anyway, the plot for this Rising event is that the Wandering Minstrel wants to talk with the people about the Calamity for inspiration for a new song. And so we go to meet with Badaran in the tavern in Limsa Lominsa, and he asks us to follow Richa, a young girl who insists upon becoming an adventurer. We find her with a yellow jacket named Ayoyo, and Richa explains that she hears that there is a local lighthouse that is haunted, and her parents used to work there before they died in the Calamity. And so now she lives at an orphanage, but she wants to investigate the haunted lighthouse to see if it is her parents that are actually haunting the place, or prove that it is not haunted to clear her parents' good name. So we go to the lighthouse and talk with the lighthouse keeper, Rostanza, whoever you pronounce that. Man, the names in Limsa are always really hard to pronounce. Anyway, he used to work with her parents and tells Richa some nice stories about them. Basically, her parents died because they were manning the lighthouse during the Calamity and were doing everything they could to help guide ships to safety. And so Richa decides she wants to go forward in life helping people like her parents did. And so then I went back to Limsa to see fireworks and got a vision where Yoshi P appears in the vision and talks about how he has always focused on moving forward, but realized that he should reflect upon the past more and learn from it. And it says mistakes and successes should both be learned from, which basically to me means he is aware of the reception of Dawntrail and Final Fantasy XVI and realizes that there needs to be some kind of course correction because while he was on a hot streak for a while, clearly the way has been lost and you can't just go full steam ahead. You have to look back like, what was I doing right? What was I doing wrong? And you need to have a more holistic approach. And so the humility of that was really cool because you have to be aware of the audience reception and what the audience thinks and chart your course appropriately. Doesn't mean you have to be a slave to the audience, but you have to be aware of what the audience feels. Like, for example, I'm a Swiftie, and Taylor Swift's last album, The Tortured Poets Department, is my favorite Taylor Swift album. It is a giant, grandiose, double album full of songs of heartbreak and, very few accessible singles. It is an album that makes the listener work to appreciate it, but if they do, it is fantastic. But Taylor has gotten criticism for working too much with Jack Antonoff over the years and releasing too much music and not really focusing on catchy enough songs. And so her next album, Life of a Showgirl, is her not working with Jack Antonoff, only 13 songs, and is focused on pop bangers and being catchy as all heck. And so that is an example of the artist being aware of the criticism and pivoting appropriately and making sure that you're not just doing the same thing over and over again. And so I haven't played Dawntrail yet, but to me it seems similar to Final Fantasy XI's The Voracious Resurgence, where both of them are follow-ups to the big, giant conclusion of the game. Rhapsodies of Vana'diel was supposed to be the end of 11, Endwalker, the end of 14, at least in terms of narrative. And then it's okay, now here is our lighter, more slice-of-life adventure that gets kind of epic at the end, but was meant to be sort of a new start. A refresher, let's bring things back down, chill out a little bit. And I really liked The Voracious Resurgence. I thought it was really awesome, and it really pains me that most people don't even know it exists, and a lot of even diehard 11 fans just skip it and just don't even care about it, when it's really good, and it's a very lengthy storyline. And so because I liked it a lot, I don't think I'm going to hate Dawntrail like so many other people do. In general, I tend to like a band's entire catalog, and so when they do a weird pivot that a lot of fans don't like as much, I'm oh, I see what they were going for, I like this. So I don't think I'm going to hate Dawntrail. I might like it less than a lot of other expansions, but I don't think I'm going to hate it. But I'm definitely looking forward to Dawntrail because I'm really curious about it. And I wonder if Marathon all the expansions, if instead of waiting years after Endwalker to play Dawntrail, waiting a couple weeks, if Dawntrail is going to hit much harder for me and if I'm going to like it more. So definitely interested to see how Dawntrail will land. But anyway, the Rising was a nice little event, and I was really happy with it. And I said to myself, okay, I still have a little bit of time before work to play some 14. I'm going to try to do some MSQ so this vlog would have some meat with its update and not just me saying, okay, I played another Eden and I got like nothing in 14 done. And so I teleported to Zenith to continue the MSQ, but then I saw, wait a minute, a whole bunch of side quests have opened up. And I realized, oh, these are more Moogle quests. And my compulsion to help Moogles forced me to do the Moogle quest instead of the MSQ. Look, man, the Moogles, they're cute and funny. I can't resist them and their fluffiness. And so I went and I did all of the Moogle quests that had just opened up. Normally, I only do one quest at a time in 14, but I found myself taking on multiples and clearing them all at once. There was a new Palm Guard quest line. Got to see Moglio again, and they explained their path with Horace Valgar and protection of Zenith, and how Zenith is the last remaining structure made by the landlords, basically like the Elezen and people of Ishgard, and dragons, when they were unified as friends. And so that was some nice lore, and, you know, I'm glad I got the lore, and I'm always glad to help the Moogles. Like, I could not resist doing those Moogle quests. I know that a lot of 14 fans, when Heaven's Word first came out, did not like them, but I'm gonna be honest, I had a good time. I said to myself, I should be doing the MSQ, but I'm having too much fun doing these Moogle quests. The Moogles, they distract me from the MSQ. And so then later that day, I did the Ryzen event with Summoner Jobin as my alt character, Gredtorian. And after doing the event, I didn't realize I had an item in my inventory that let me add the Reindeer Blitzen as a mount. So cool, new mount that I had for a long time and just didn't use the item to unlock. But yeah, so that is my 14 vlog for this week. I want to thank you all so much for watching, even though there was a lot less 14 talk in this vlog than normal and a lot more another Eden talk than normal. Next week, I'm hoping to get back into the MSQ and have a more substantial 14 updates. But I do think that I still provide at least some good 14 commentary, talking about Yoshi P and his perception on Dawn Trail, talk about the Ryzen event, talk about the Moogle quests, and also complain about the gear repairing system in 14 through the context of another Eden. But yeah, I kind of debated, like, do I even do a vlog this week? Is it better to skip a week and not have any release and then break the routine of people who enjoy watching these every week if I don't do as much in the game? And, you know, there have been some weeks where the vlogs were only like 10 minutes just because of like how little time I had to play 14. So hopefully you still enjoy the vlogs each week. And next week, I'm looking forward to diving back into that MSQ. I'm itching to get back to the story. Moogle quests are done. My grinding to unlock cats is done. It's time to jump back into the MSQ. And I have a feeling that some big stuff is about to happen. I just have this vibe like, okay, things seem like they're fine. The other shoe is about to drop. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.